Now we're going to use XML schema to define a schema file for our business card example. So over here in the Project Explorer in the Chapter 10 folder, I have opened up the example files for the schema example. And here in the example snippets, I've scrolled down to Chapter 10 under XML schema. Okay, so open up the business card XML file and open up the BusinessCard_start.xsd file. I've also included a finished version of the XSD file in case you want to just jump ahead and try it out. All right, so let's go back to the XML file. And you can see here in the XML file, this is the business card that we've been using up until now. And I've included a couple of attributes on here. First is XMLNS:XSI, and this is pointing to the schema instance namespace. And then I've got another one called the no namespace schema location, which is being defined as BusinessCard_start.xsd. And essentially this says use the XSD file that's located in the current directory where my XML file is. So let's go over to the snippets. And let's start by copying the element definition for the business card. So I'm going to copy this, and we're going to go over to the XSD file. And you can see here that I've got my schema definition, and right now it's empty. So let's go ahead and paste this in. So we're going to be defining a new element. In this case, it's called business card. And business card, of course, is the root tag. And we've got it defined as a complex type. All right, so let's go ahead and save. Let's go back to the snippets. Inside the complex type, we're going to define a sequence. So let's copy the sequence tags right here, put those inside the complex type. And let's take a moment and go back and look at our XML data. So a business card is a sequence of tags. There's a name tag, followed by one or more phone tags, followed by an email tag. So that's how we're going to define our schema. All right, back to the snippets. Let's go ahead and copy the name element. So we'll copy that, and we'll paste it in. So now you can see that we've defined the element name, and we're restricting it to be a string. All right. Now let's go back and copy the phone. The phone is a bit of a complex beast. So let's explain this one in depth. So here I have an element definition, and we're calling it phone. Now, I haven't specified a min occurs value, and I have specified a max occurs value. So since I haven't specified a min occurs value, that means it has to occur at least one time because that's the default of that value. Because max occurs is unbounded, I can have as many phone elements as I like. And then inside the element declaration, I have a complex type, and I've got mixed equals true, which means it's a mixed content model. So I can have character data or other elements in here. And I'm going to declare an attribute named type. So the type is required. In addition, I'm going to define a simple type that uses a restriction based off of strings. So I'm going to be restricting the attribute of type to be one of these enumerated values right here, either mobile, fax, work, or home. So I've got a restriction, which is a simple type restriction, which is inside the attribute. So that block of code right there restricts the type attribute to one of a set of values. Okay, so now we'll save. Back to the snippets. And then last but not least, let's copy the email element and put that in below the phone element. And you can see on the email element, it has a string type and it has a min occurs of 0, which means it's optional. So I haven't defined a max occurs element, so the default value for that is 1. So this means the email element can appear 0 or 1 time. All right, so let's save. And by the way, you noticed I'm using some very basic restrictions here. Now I've got a type of XSD string, but of course I could have made this a pattern type and restricted the email address to a regular expression for a valid email, but I'm going to leave that as an exercise to you, the viewer. All right, so let's save. Now let's go back to the business card and let's make sure that everything is working. So I'm going to go ahead and right click. And again, if you've got the XML developer tools installed, like I showed earlier in the course, you'll have a little validate item down here. So I'm going to choose validate, and we can see that the validation completed with no errors or warnings. Okay, so let's see. If I take out the email address and save and then validate again, once again, no errors because min occurs as 0. But if I put in too many of them and I validate, yep, sure enough, I get an error. Okay, so I mouse over the error, and the error is that invalid content was found starting with element email, and no child element is expected at this point because schema says, nope, you're only supposed to have 0 or 1 of these. Okay, so I'll get rid of it, I'll save, and I'll validate to clear the error. Okay, that's great. Let's try something else. Let's try putting in a phone, and let's give it a type of something else. Save, validate. Oh, we got 2 errors. So we got the value ASD type is not valid with respect to its type, so we can undo that. Save, revalidate. Everything is fine. Let's try something else. Let's take the name tag and let's move it down here and let's validate. And you can see that there's an error there. So let's move over the thing here. It says invalid content was found starting with element phone. 1 of name is expected. And that's because, why? This is a sequence. I didn't use an all. I used XSD sequence. And when you use a sequence, the XML parser is going to expect that the elements are going to show up in the sequence in which they are defined in the schema declaration. So let's go back here and fix that. So we'll cut and we'll paste and save and revalidate. All right, so as you can see, schema is a very powerful, very flexible mechanism for defining rules to help keep your XML content error-free and well-formed.